Another shootout between Israeli troops and Palestinian police. Sierra Leone's president speaks with CNN, his first television interview since the start of the recent violence there. And a new, more destructive virus is sneaking into computers via the internet. From CNN in Washington, this is Worldview. I'm Judy Woodruff. Bernard Shaw is on assignment. A word to you first. We are expecting any moment now a news conference held by New York Congressman Rick Lazio, who announced today he will run for the U.S. Senate seat from the state of New York in the wake of the decision by New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani not to run. We'll bring you that news conference as it begins. It has been a day of rage in the Palestinian territories, hundreds of Palestinians clashing with Israeli troops in a series of protests Friday. There was gunfire and there was blood. CNN's Mike Hanna reports.
A firefight erupts in the Gaza Strip. For the second time this week, Palestinian police and Israeli soldiers come in direct conflict. At least one Israeli soldier is wounded and a number of casualties on the Palestinian side. The violence followed a tense encounter at a Palestinian police checkpoint. Israeli soldiers, apparently attempting to pass through, were told to leave their weapons behind. Then a Palestinian officer is heard to say on the radio, "We are being occupied." The exchange of fire occurred just hours after the Israeli Prime Minister demanded an end to the violence. Ehud Barak was visiting an Israeli army post near the West Bank town of Ramallah, where Palestinian police and Israeli soldiers exchanged fire on Monday.
We demanded from the Palestinians to change it and to take all necessary steps to make it impossible that such events will be repeated.
But shortly after Barak's visit, the demonstrators in Ramallah were again on the march. Palestinian police lined the road in an apparent attempt to prevent the protesters from reaching a post manned by Israeli soldiers. But it soon becomes clear the attempt is truly a token one. The Israeli response is swift and predictable. Yet another of the confrontations that has become commonplace in recent days, as Palestinians continue to express their frustration on the ground with the lack of progress in the peace process. It's a delicate balancing act. Palestinians believe mass demonstrations keep positive pressure on the peace process, but each outbreak of violence could provide an excuse for those Israelis intent on dragging their heels. And events on this day are signal to some Israelis that while continuing to negotiate a peace, the Palestinian leadership is keeping open the option of violence. Mike Hanna, CNN, Ramallah.
The government of Sierra Leone now says U.S. presidential envoy Jesse Jackson is welcome to visit the troubled West African country. Earlier, the government had warned Jackson to stay away because he had said that rebel leader Foday Sanko should be included in reconciliation efforts. Jackson is touring West Africa in a bid to ease tensions in Sierra Leone, where rebels recently shattered last year's peace accord by taking UN peacekeepers hostage. CNN's Ben Wiedemann spoke with Sierra Leone's president, Ahmad Tijon Kaba, Friday, and asked him about the peace agreement and other pressing issues.
The agreement may be in some difficulties, but as far as we're concerned, we signed it. I signed it on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone. Foday Sanko signed it on behalf of the RUF. Now, I'm an individual. If I should die now or something happens to me or I'm no longer president of Sierra Leone, that agreement will still be valid. So I think we have to separate the two issues, the individuals from the agreement. As far as we're concerned, the agreement is a good agreement. It contains lots and lots of provisions which are very good for this country. For example, some institutions that have been created in it are very vital. Take the Commission for Strategic Mineral Resource. Commission. Now, diamond is one of our problems in this country. And the rebels have been stealing our diamonds together with other people from outside Sierra Leone, stealing our diamonds, buying arms, and fueling the war. And this has been going on for a very long time. So in that agreement, there is provision in that agreement to see how best we can overcome that problem so that our mineral resources can be used for the benefit of the people of this country.
Now, Mr. Sanko is now in government hands. What are you going to do with him? Will you include him in government once again, or will you, as many people here are asking, put him on trial?
Well, this is a democratic country, and we have opted for the rule of law, which should prevail in our country. And so if somebody has committed a crime, that person will have to face the full force of the law. Even the president of this country is subject to the laws of this country. So at the moment, we have an investigation going on into what happened on the 8th of this month. You know that Sanko was on the loose for quite some time, and there are other people who were with him who are still on the run. So we want to be able to marshal the evidence to come to the conclusion as to what has happened.
Now, on the question of the United Nations peacekeeping force, do you think it has been effective on the ground in Sierra Leone?
Well, like anything else, they had their teething problems, and I sympathize with them in many ways. And I hope that steps have been taken to correct whatever lapses may have occurred.
Sierra Leone's President Ahmed Tijan Kaba talking with CNN's Ben Wiedemann. As in most modern wars, civilians are the ones who have suffered the most in Sierra Leone. In nearly 9 years of fighting, rebels killed, raped, and mutilated defenseless civilians. In a report that first aired on CNN late Thursday, Ben Wiedemann has the story of those who survived. But we warn you, this is a report that is graphic and it may be disturbing.
If time heals most wounds, some wounds are beyond the reach of time. Lansana Sese lives in Freetown, in a camp for amputees and war wounded, victims of what the rebels simply called cuttings. Mass amputations of non-combatants intended to terrorize civilians. There was no mercy.
I asked him to leave one hand. He said, no, we are going to chop all your both hands.
He ran after the rebels, begging them to shoot him. Without my hands, he said, I might as well be dead. But the rebels refused. Next to the camp is a workshop making artificial limbs. But there is nothing here that can ease the searing memory of the nightmares.
Now, the perpetrators of these actions were asking the people, do you want a long sleeve or short sleeve? By this they mean, do you want your hands cut right up here or right down here?
Age didn't matter. Momi Kroma was only 3 months old when rebels attacked her family's house. They chopped off both her father's hands and then cut off her left arm. Her father bled to death in front of her. Her mother, Amanita, who was away from home during the attack, doesn't know what happened to her other 3 children. Rebels ordered Hassan Ba to hold down his son's hand while they hacked off his arm. And then it was Hassan's turn. They took one of his daughters back to the bush, where she became a sex slave for the rebels. Then they killed his baby son.
And my child, the other one, the suckling one, they took him and chunked it in the toilet.
So many lives, so randomly shattered. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Freetown.
Although many in Sierra Leone are demanding that rebel leader Foday Sanko be punished under the terms of last July's peace accord, Sanko and his men were granted amnesty for all crimes committed before the accord was signed. Ethiopian forces have consolidated their hold over a strategic town in western Eritrea. The European Union Special Envoy says that he is preparing a visit to both countries in a bid to help end the 2-year-old border war. As Eritrean forces retreat, up to 1 million people are fleeing their homes. The United Nations says thousands are crossing the border into Sudan. To South America now, where the Peruvian government said Friday that a presidential runoff election will be held a week from Sunday, even though candidate Alejandro Toledo has decided not to participate. He is challenging the incumbent president, Alberto Fujimori. Amid charges of voting fraud, United States officials say they will carefully monitor the election process. And joining us by telephone is Toledo's top political advisor, Gustavo Gorriti, in Lima, where supporters have been urged to take to the streets. Mr. Gorriti, first of all, is Mr. Toledo in this race or not? We are told that he has not signed the official papers to have his name withdrawn.
He's in the race, indeed. He has not withdrawn. He has only said that he will not participate in the scheduled May 28 elections because all the possible measures to curtail the fraud measures that were in place and are impossible to do in time. I have to say that it's not only Mr. Toledo who is asking for a postponement of the date of the elections, but the OAS mission, the Carter Center, and several other missions. So in an election that has been rife with irregularities that are tantamount to a scheme for conducting fraudulent voting, it is totally unadvisable for us to run before indispensable measures are taken to curtail that possibility.
Well, the government now says this election will go forward. If it does, will you honor the results of the voting?
Absolutely not. First of all, I know of no elections with just one candidate, unless you want to have a North Korea model of elections. If Alejandro Toledo, who represents all Peruvians with democratic points of view, does not participate, you will have only one candidate, a candidate that has had control not only over the executive, but also over the judiciary, Congress, and even the election board.
You're referring referring to Mr. Fujimori.
I am referring to Mr. Alberto Fujimori, indeed.
And you are saying that he's responsible?
Absolutely so. He and the people that control the current regime, that are running a very disguised authoritarian regime, that want to perpetuate themselves in power, that are trying to conduct a facade of a democratic process, and both Mr. Toledo and the majority of Peruvians supporting him will not countenance that. We will not participate in a process that is totally tainted before the measures to have the minimum standards of fairness are taken.
All right, Mr. Gustavo Gorriti, a senior advisor to presidential candidate Alejandro Toledo, we thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
To Asia, as Taiwan prepares for its first ever democratic transfer of power, President-elect Chen Shui-bian says he hopes his inaugural address Saturday will inspire confidence and hope. But he has not revealed how he will handle Beijing's demand that he acknowledge the One China principle, something that polls show most Taiwan residents oppose. China has meanwhile cleared a big hurdle in its bid to join the World Trade Organization. Beijing signed a deal Friday with the European Union to open Chinese markets to European goods. The move increases pressure on the U.S. Congress to give China permanent trading rights. That vote takes place next week. A member of China's banned spiritual movement, Falun Gong, has reportedly died in police detention during a hunger strike. A Hong Kong human rights group says the 45-year-old man died May 6th after refusing food and water for 8 days. He was imprisoned in September after trying to protest against a government ban of the sect. Ahead on World View, it is more dangerous than the love bug. Law enforcement authorities grapple with a new computer virus.
grandmother, a teacher, and a couple are all witnessing a miracle. A mother sharing the birth of her child live over the internet. It's the kind of power Marconi Optical Networks can deliver. This is her finest hour. When will your finest hour be?
Luscious lime or red like cranberry? Oh no, yellow like brilliant sun, mountain lavender, scuba blue for the bedroom.
During True Value's Great Paint Event, you can choose from over 2,000 colors, all at great savings.
Oh look, Glacier Glint goes with my couch. But Heart of Gold is perfect. Definitely Caravan Blue for the porch. Wait, Red Oak.
The Great Paint Event at True Value. Hurry in. You've only got a short time to make up your mind.
Make up my mind?
All over the world, they take people where they need to go. But wherever the road ends, there's a good chance it started with Caterpillar equipment.
Now there's something new for both of you. 100% of your daily calcium requirement, plus all the heartburn relief of Mylanta. Introducing new Mylanta Calcitabs. It's just what you're both looking for.
Okay, sweetie, on your toes. Swing through the ball, through it. Eye on the ball, hon. We're working on the forehand. Okay, let's try backhand. We'll work backhand. Okay, you just need to connect with the ball. Let's stay in the game, sweetheart. Now, don't be afraid to charge the net.
How do you plan on financing your retirement? Conseco's annuities have tax advantages that can help. Conseco, step up.
This just into CNN, a statement by President Clinton on war-torn Sierra Leone. The president says he has authorized the Department of Defense to provide up to $20 million in defense goods and services to support efforts by the United Nations and other international forces to stabilize the situation in Sierra Leone. The assistance, we're told, will include military transport, supplies, equipment, and services, all intended to give the international community the support that it needs. A new computer virus is emerging and is on the attack. So-called New Love has been infecting computers around the world for the past 2 days. While the Love bug of 2 weeks ago targeted just a few files on a computer, the so-called New Love virus erases nearly every file. On Friday, U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno launched an FBI investigation into the new virus. And CNN's Justice Department correspondent Pierre Thomas is here now with more. Pierre, it seems like these viruses just get more dangerous.
Well, today the Attorney General sought to issue a warning to the American public, namely about this particular virus, but also to warn that these viruses are becoming more and more sophisticated and that the creators of these viruses seem to be building on each other's work. The other point that the Justice Department tried to make today is that they're seeing more and more viruses. In fact, 20 to 30 new viruses entering the internet every day. That's a major problem. They're having to decide which viruses to investigate because they don't have the resources to look at everyone, so they're having to create thresholds of when to investigate. Also, since October, the FBI has seen a great increase in the number of computer crimes they've been investigating. 800 cases in October, now more than 1,000, Judy.
All right, CNN's justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Thank you, Pierre. People who want 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez to remain in the United States are hoping their case will be bolstered by photographs taken at his temporary U.S. home showing him in the garb of a communist youth group. In papers filed with an Atlanta appeals court, lawyers for Elian's Miami relatives say the picture proves that he will undergo indoctrination into the group Young Pioneers, a Cuban communist organization. Now, some other stories in our Worldview Minute. New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has canceled plans to run for the U.S. Senate. Recent announcements that he suffers from prostate cancer and is separating from his wife had led to speculation that he would not run. The president-elect of the Dominican Republic pledges to boost social spending. Opposition candidate Hipólito Mejía won just under half of the votes cast in Tuesday's election, but was declared winner after the other two leading candidates dropped out to avoid a runoff. Voters in Haiti go to the polls Sunday to elect a new parliament and to set the stage for presidential elections. The long-delayed elections are being held against a backdrop of recent political violence in which 15 party officials and candidates have been killed. We'll have more Worldview in just a moment.
For the IT manager. Everyone wants everything now. Luckily, CDW, your direct solutions provider, can custom configure computing solutions from 50,000 top name products. Like the reliable IBM Netfinity family of servers for mission-critical applications. With seamless IT solutions from IBM, CDW will never leave you hanging. IBM and CDW, the smart call for business.
On the road, even for an experienced driver, things are not always the way they appear. For instance, the blind spots around a truck. They can be a dangerous place to drive.
Now that's a beauty.
Remember, if you can't see the driver's face in the side mirrors,
Honey, he can't see you.
the driver can't see you. Stay out of the truck's blind spots, and you'll stay safe. For more tips on how to share the road safely, get this free booklet from Shell. Count on Shell.
In one easy stop, you can get the right tires, the right battery, and shocks, and brakes for your Lincoln, Mercury, or Ford. From the people who know your car best, all at competitive prices. Nothing protects your engine like a Motorcraft oil and filter change, now just $19.95 or less. Quality care service, the right people, the right parts, and always the right prices at participating Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers.
Tom Clancy joins forces with one of America's top air commanders. Every man a tiger. A true chronicle of modern aerial war. Its devastating impact. Its incredible power. Tom Clancy with General Chuck Horner. Every man a tiger.
Got something large you gotta send someplace else? Call PacMail. We ship anything, anywhere.
Bringing you the world for 20 years. This is CNN.
The widow of President John F. Kennedy and Greek tycoon Aristotle Onassis have been battling cancer of the lymphatic system since the first of this year. Her swift death making headlines from Brazil to Britain, with flags flying at half-staff in Boston. A short while ago, the family announced that the...
We interrupt that report of CNN 20 to take you to New York, to Long Island, where Congressman Rick Lazio will talk to reporters about his decision to run for the U.S. Senate.
Earlier today, I had a conversation with Mayor Giuliani in which he expressed to me his decision that he would discontinue his efforts for the United States Senate. I know it was an exceedingly difficult decision for the mayor. He certainly had the best interest of New Yorkers in mind when he made that decision. He told me that he needed to focus on his health, which I fully support. I know that some of you have been asking about whether or not we would have an announcement here. We did earlier make a statement announcing that I would be a candidate for the United States Senate in New York. I will be making that official announcement shortly. But I'm looking forward to this. This has been my lifelong home. It's been a state that I have represented in the United States House of Representatives for 8 years. I am looking forward to this race with enthusiasm, and we will have much more to say about that over the next couple days. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Very brief announcement there from New York Congressman, Long Island Congressman Rick Lazio, that he will indeed be a candidate for the United States Senate. His statement coming in the aftermath of the announcement today by New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani that he will not make the run, mainly because of his battle with prostate cancer. Bill Schneider, you are joining us from New York.
Atlanta.
From Atlanta. You're still qualified to talk about New York politics. Congressman Lazio, how does this change the political equation here? He'll be the candidate running against First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Well, Judy, he's a relatively unknown candidate. He's a congressman, one of over 30 from New York State. He's not known statewide. Over 3/4 of New York voters about a week ago had never heard of him, though I bet a lot more have heard of him now, and they will in the next few days. This means the race is more likely than not to be a referendum on Mrs. Clinton. And the latest polling shows that even against Mr. Lazio, only 50% of New Yorkers say they would vote for Mrs. Clinton. So it still looks like it could be a very tight race, even against an unknown candidate.
Frank Buckley, our correspondent who's been covering this race, joins us from our New York bureau. Frank, how does this change the dynamics of this race?
Well, one thing that should be considered is that Rick Lazio doesn't have the negatives that are associated with Rudy Giuliani. Yes, he is a relative unknown within the state and throughout the U.S., but Rudy Giuliani was well known and well disliked by a large group of people. He was also well liked by another large group of people. The polling has suggested that both candidates in the race up to this point, Giuliani and Clinton, are entrenched. They're both in the 40s with their support, and the undecideds have been a small group that are right in the middle. That hasn't changed over the past 3 weeks. There's been slight changes here or there, but generally speaking, there's support of this level for one candidate, this level for another candidate. Rick Lazio, yes, he's unknown, but remember, George Pataki was a relative unknown when he ran against Mario Cuomo for governor and won. So it's not a horrible thing from the Republican perspective that a relative unknown is in this race.
All right, Frank Buckley referring to George Pataki, who is, of course, the sitting governor of New York State. Thanks to you, Frank Buckley, our correspondent who's been covering that race in New York, and to CNN senior political analyst Bill Schneider. And that is it for Worldview. Thank you for joining us. I'm Judy Woodruff. The Moneyline News Hour coming up next.
Okay, sweetie, on your toes. Swing through the ball, through it. Eye on the ball, hon. We're working on the forehand. Okay, let's try backhand. We'll work backhand. Okay, you just need to connect with the ball. Let's stay in the game, sweetheart. Now, don't be afraid to charge the net.
How do you plan on financing your retirement? Conseco's annuities have tax advantages that can help. Conseco, step up.
Two different worlds. A paper world, a digital world. Worlds that didn't always work together. Today, there's the Xerox Document Center. The digital copier printer with so many possibilities, we put it in a video. The Document Center talks to any computer on your network. Stay at your desk and have it print, copy, collate, staple, even fax without getting up. Let the document center know what to do, and it shows you everything is fine. You can scan a page and see it on your screen. Now make a change, email it to George, then on to Sally, who prints it out. Your free